Welcome to another Small Business Pivots. Today we have another special guest from around the world. And I know, as I always say week to week, there's no one better than the business owner that can introduce themselves and their business.
Hi, Michael. So my name is Marcy Clark of Marcy Clark PR and Events. I am in the San Francisco Bay Area. I have lived and worked, though, in England. I was in Manchester, England, had a lot of client events in London. I worked in New York for almost 18 years and did, huge events there, Fashion Week, art, gallery events, lots of product launches, lots of media tours, desk side tours, with the big editors there. And then I've worked with clients, no matter where I've lived in the country, I have worked with clients and traveled and, everywhere from, Austin and Miami to South Africa, Dubai, all over the country. So
Wow, that's
I love
amazing.
and the world. If I pitch in English and Spanish, I'm a part Puerto Rican, and so I've gotten clients on, not just New York Times and NBC, ABC, CBS, but also Telemundo. Yeah, so I am a really seasoned publicist. My specialty is on, I love consumer PR, but I have done some business to business. I represented, one of my clients was the largest lingerie trade show in the
Wow,
United States. That was really fun. So I
I
was working for
bet.
trade clients as well as, getting Vogue editors and Elle and Harper's Bazaar, getting them there too.
Well, I can tell our listeners are going to learn a lot because you've been around the world literally. So,
Yeah, yes, yes.
well,
And
what do you think before we introduce the show? What do you think we're going to help them with the most, our listeners?
so today, I would love if listeners walk away with, what they should look for if they do want to hire a PR firm, right? So they know that kind of like what is a green flag, what is a red flag. Don't work with these people.
Yeah.
I would love if people really got a clear understanding of what is PR and what is other aspects of marketing that is not necessarily PR. I do a big mixture of brand positioning and public relations and strategy, right? Like
Yeah.
strategy for what events you want to do, which direction do you want to go in branding wise, how do you want to spend your time. For one of my clients, an app for people with disabilities, I am the chief marketing officer,
Hmm.
right? So I started just as the publicist,
Yeah.
but it expanded. I'm a fractional CMO. So
Very
I
cool.
do a lot, but for this, I'd love to focus on PR and give people a really clear understanding of what it is and how it looks when it's working.
Mm.
And some things, if it's not working, what do you want to do then?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So most of our listeners know I have an educational background in marketing, owned a marketing firm. So this will we're gonna have a good conversation. I don't want to spill any beans yet. So let's introduce the show and we will be right back. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast designed for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, a small business coach and founder of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success so that you can own a business that runs without you. To learn more, go to businessownershipsimplified.com. All right, welcome back to Small Business Pivots. Here we are with a special guest from San Francisco. Before we get started on PR, what's a little bit about your background so that we can relate to the mindset of a successful entrepreneur?
Okay, so I grew up in the Bay Area. I was really quite an extrovert as a child, so I have a lot of affinity for this career. Like most of the good publicists that I know, I have a theater background.
Hmm,
Literally, most,
interesting.
yeah, all the best, PR entrepreneurs that I know, were, I was more, an actor, in high school, college, right? And a lot of them that I know, they were in they were in musical theater or something, right? I used to, this is a really weird childhood thing, but I used to, when I was really little, I'm talking, like 3, 4, 5, I knew I was loud. And I think I just had the most understanding parents in the world. And I would grab a friend, I'd be like, or my aunt or something, and I would be like, I can be really loud. You want to see who can be the loudest? And I would just be like, let's have a screaming contest. And
Oh, wow.
I've toned it down a lot, but and it was good. I found theater to channel that. But I'm also someone who is really as extroverted as I was. Like anybody, I had challenges in school. Kids were mean, things like that. So I had, quiet periods. I had that instinct inside, like, this should be better. This should be
Yeah.
more fair. We should be nicer to each other, right?
Yeah.
So the little activist in me, the cheerleader for others, not wanting people, the person who cared about others, that is still definitely a through line to my business today. I went to college in San Diego and loved that. And then I studied abroad my junior year in England and in Lancaster. And then I decided that I wanted to go back after school and live in England. So I thought, okay, what's a career that I could do that I could get really good in a short period of time that they might want to sponsor my work permit? I had a 6-month work permit, but I was like, I need to be here longer so I could stay with my friends, my boyfriend, everybody I've met in England, right? These decisions we make when we're 23. So I character in a book I'd read did PR, and I had seen it, on television, and I said, I think I could do that. I just had an inner knowing, right? And I printed out my resume. I worked on my resume. I looked up every PR firm in Manchester, England, and I went around and I knocked on doors. I had some things that were kind of relevant. I'd helped with some outreach for the theater company I was in. I had done, some public outreach to supermarkets for,
Yeah.
a county project, one summer. So I spun everything in my resume, I knocked on doors, and I got a job in a week doing that. And at a PR firm, and that's where, I learned the ropes. We had everything in that client, in that firm in England. We had everything from the first gluten-free food company to, plastic surgery firm to fueling solutions to the British Army. So
Wow.
it was a huge, like, a giant learning curve. I had great mentors, people that I still see when I go back to visit friends, and I have a goddaughter in England. When I go back, I still see some of these people. I'm still friends with them.
That's really
So
cool. So, did you see yourself being an entrepreneur with that? Because I know a lot of business owners have this mindset of, I'm not qualified to be a business owner, imposter syndrome. And so you just kind of stepped right into the PR world and owned it.
yeah, I stepped right in, and then I did. My thought was that I wanted to get really good at this, and so that I could do it independently within a few years.
Mm.
And my first thought was, oh, then I can do this part time and then act on the side. But
Yeah.
what's interesting is what took over time. Is I started, I went to New York and I started a social club in New York. In addition to, I got my first, my second PR job in New York. I saw, like, even as extroverted as I was, it took some effort, right, to make friends. And it ran into so many people that they were women that were in the same boat. So I started a social club called the Women's Mafia.
Hmm.
And that grew. I had that for 15 years. I
Wow.
still have the site. I'm actually rebranding it now as the Visionary Mafia. It'll feature men and women, all across the country. But in New York, it was really neat because brought, my passions for events, for creating spectacle, for bringing people together, right? So I was doing everything from, it might be, a nightclub, heels and cocktails, to eventually we were doing, huge, giant fashion week events, 500 people events. I would be doing 2 or 3 events during, 1 week that were that size
Wow.
for fashion week, and magazine launches, and you name it. International, working with international clients. So it was a joy, and so many people that also met each other through the Women's Mafia. So I'm
Mm.
still getting referrals from that to
Wow.
this day. Yeah.
So you started your business in what year? Your actual business?
Ooh, well, this in the independent iteration of my business, I have had now for 10 years.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So a while. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what PR is and what it's not. And then also maybe some acronyms or maybe some, like, is it branding? Is it the same as marketing? Is it, kind of what the difference is?
Okay. So if you think about marketing as a big umbrella, right? I would look at underneath that, there's a lot of categories, but one might be advertising, and under that, right, you have digital advertising, print, et cetera, advertorial. I'll share that later. Under, you have branding, which is, we're thinking about a name, a website, what does the aesthetic look like, the
Mhm.
graphic design, also brand positioning, what's the language you're using to differentiate it, all of that. So I do some of that. And then public relations, which is that is a person like myself, right, or an agency reaching out to the media on a company's behalf or an individual's behalf and convincing a journalist that they should write about, feature, interview on their podcast or television show, or otherwise, or feature a guest article from my client.
So you're like
So
a personal rep of the company, kind of like a movie star.
exactly. Yeah. So some people say like the term like press agent,
Hmm.
right? That's the Hollywood term you were just kind of referencing.
Yeah.
The way, I do a lot of strategic marketing and PR, before we get to where we're pitching somebody, I might be first thinking about, I was talking to a food company the other day, for example. This woman makes this amazing dessert, and it's most people haven't had it. It's sweet, savory, it's all these things. And she's done a few celebrity events and had, people invite her to cater their, Dua Lipa invited her to cater a, holiday party, for example, or no, an awards show party last year. So for that, right, and before I dive into, reaching out to the media, I might first say, so which things that you've already done led to the most sales for you? What's worked so far? What's already working? Who's your customer right now? So in the strategy, I'm looking at what's already working, what's really strong, who's responding to them. So that helps me find their target market. And then I design the PR campaign around that. In this case, I might, for example, say, okay, you'd want to start pretty soon because our goal is going to be, let's get you, I have in this PR network, that network. Let's also, do some partnerships, which is also under the marketing umbrella. Let's do some partnerships and get you, featured at these different awards shows, at at these celebrity events. Let's get more people talking about you. And then I can take that and those messaging, those celebrity names, and include that in my PR outreach.
So for those that don't know, what is the end purpose of hiring a PR firm for the actual business?
Great question. So the main, I'd say there's kind of 2, 3 main benefits. So the first one is that when the story comes, when I secure a podcast interview or a television interview or a magazine article, there's the first initial hit that gets out there. There's that brand awareness, that, that kind of excitement that comes from that people can say, oh, I haven't heard of this. Oh, that sounds delicious. And a certain percentage of people are, you're going to benefit from that first by, a certain percentage of people are going to maybe want to buy or hire you from, directly from that first, hit of it going out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the next layer, the next benefit you have is that when you take that piece of media and you share that, so you share it on your newsletter, you share it on your website, you share it on your social media, and you give it new life every time you share it. Like, oh, it's celebrating 1 year after we got this,
Yeah.
or oh, a friend just told me they loved this episode of my podcast, and got a lot out of it. They suggested I share it again today, happy listening, right? So
Right.
so there's the you're sharing it as part of your bona fides, right? You're patting yourself on the back, but it's a third party endorsement, right? So an outlet, a professional media outlet, another person, a trusted, source is saying, you got to talk to this person. This person is an expert. This product is delicious. This, store has, the best, widgets.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the second one. And then the third one I would say is kind of in line with that, is that when it's on your website. So if you're doing let's say you're doing your digital marketing, right? So you're doing, you're buying ads on, or you're using, you hire somebody to do a bunch of strategic TikToks or something, right? If you have somebody doing that, creating, putting out all that content, and it works, and it gets people to your website, and then they're hovering over, they're thinking, do I buy? Do I not? Right? Is this good? Do I really want it? It's that third party endorsement that turns the interest into a sale. So maybe they saw some influencer say, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had. Look at this beautiful dress. But they go to your site and they see, oh, Food and Wine also, touted this, or, oh, wow, they were featured in Harper's Bazaar. Okay.
Yeah.
This is legit. I will send my money.
So it's like a Google review on steroids.
That's right. Yes.
Because
it can have a similar effect, right? Just like having a podcast, could have a similar boost to your brand and your your authority in the world as writing a book, right?
Yeah.
So
very cool. So what are some myths about PR? We had talked about that a little earlier.
One that I think is really funny, and when I say this, people go, oh yeah, I did think that's how it was. Okay. This is like my biggest pet peeve, is that you watch a movie and you see some celebrity publicist, right? I think is it Deborah Mazar, whatever, from Entourage. Do you remember? Yeah, she'd be on the phone, you remember I mean this favor, she'd be cursing out some journalist.
Yes. Oh, yes. Now, yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. And you're like, oh boy, like, oh wow, people think like publicists have like this tremendous amount of power and they can control the media, and that they do it through these kind of underhanded wheeling and dealing kind of ways, right? So that's one myth. I would not be in business if I acted that way. I am
I can't see you being that way.
No, that is not my personality, but I am unerringly polite. Somebody could tell me, a journalist might give me bad news, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much for telling me. What do you think might be able to be done? It's like, you have to, you have the best, platform ever. I really think we could still save this opportunity.
So you have to be friendly.
You have to be really friendly. You have to be extremely polite, extremely professional. PR is not sales. So there are similar skills right? Like being personable, charm offensive type personality. I guess the other similarity is really making the case that there's something in it for them. But in this case, I'm my audience is journalists. So it's, I have people come and they're like, well, do you think you could also do this, sales, or since you're also talking, or do you think you can also be my agent for social media, and I'm like, that is, that's reaching out to companies and asking companies to
Yeah.
pay you to advertise on your, for, Instagram ads. Like, it's not, I could help you come up with some packages, like, maybe let's we work
Right.
together, but my audience is the media.
Wow. That's
The other thing,
interesting that your audience is the media, but then the business you're representing, their audience is the media's audience, right?
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
interesting how it's not
And
even related, but it is.
yeah, and I mean, it works in some good ways though, because I am, part of PR is you're talking to your clients. I'm talking to my clients. I don't just have one monthly meeting. I'm talking to them usually every week or two. I'm sending out a lot of pitches regularly with different headlines. I might be A/B testing the headlines, right? When I'm doing that and certain things work, like they capture the attention, if I'm writing to 100 journalists with different, trying out 3 different, types of pitches, one way outperforms the rest. That's something I communicate to the client. Like, hey, this messaging, this phrasing, I think that really worked. So I'm gonna keep going with that direction. But let's also see, maybe that's something you want to include in your digital marketing firm, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe we should incorporate that onto the website because people seem to really love, that this thing seems to be the thing.
You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This episode is proudly brought to you by Boss, where business ownership is simplified for success. At Boss, we help business owners create their businesses to run smoothly without them being there 24/7. Our seasoned business coaches who have walked the path themselves provide invaluable guidance and support. And with additional services like fast business loans, some approved within 24 to 48 hours, comprehensive online courses, detailed workbooks, and engaging classes, Boss offers a wealth of resources to help you succeed. Discover how small business success begins with Boss at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to stay connected by hitting that subscribe button, giving us a thumbs up, or leaving a positive review. Your support keeps us going. Now let's get back to our incredible guest. Would it be fair to say, because I know a lot of people will see some like an Oprah Winfrey, like maybe she holds up a purse or a widget or something, and all of a sudden it takes off. So you're basically trying to get businesses publicity like that. I know that's a different scenario, but you're trying to get them the publicity so everybody just like jumps on board, right? Because I think a lot of people think of PR like damage control.
Yeah, so that's another big myth. I'm so glad you brought that up. Some scandal happens, right? And they go, "Ooh, they're getting a lot of bad PR." And I'm like, "Well, they're getting a lot of bad media, right? They're getting media about that is often it's the truth, right?
Right. Exactly.
And I think the way I look at it, damage control is a little part of PR. It's not my focus. But my thinking though is that there should be more people that have PR backgrounds that are in the C-suite of companies, right? You often have people that have marketing, right? They think about things of what I can buy, all that, but you really want to protect your company in advance. You want to be making decisions in your company's background, from the beginning, in your policies and how you treat your clients and how you treat your employees. Because usually if there is, bad PR, it's either that people mistreated their employees, right?
Yeah.
Didn't protect them, allowed sexual harassment, didn't listen, right? Somebody, along the way people thought they could sweep things under the rug. So
Right.
when I talk about if you want to scandal proof your company, you have that PR person go and talk to every department and say, hey, are there any potential red flags we should know about? So we could talk about how do we avoid this? How do we have a statement ready in case, how do we get ahead of something?
Yeah.
But it's really going to be if you have somebody who's like a serial, sexual harasser or something, it's just saving that person. Maybe you like them, but saving that person, is it going to be worth it when, 2 years later something comes out? I know, a good friend worked for a hedge fund, and it was about to come out in the Washington Post, at one point that big hedge fund guy, he harassed this person, that person. And, the company had chosen to keep, their CFO on, but it was, I think they were somehow able to squash it. Unfortunately, I think they bullied the poor girl. But, if that had come out, they would have probably lost. They might have had to go out of business. It was
Yeah.
really that bad. And
Mm.
they might have had to cut, they might have lost some clients. They might have had to cut, a third of their workforce.
Yeah.
So
But
don't, think about all your employees, from the go, and take care of people. The other thing I think for scandal proofing your company in advance instead of damage control would be with your customers. If there's something that happens that's like a red flag, like you want, Hertz is a good example. Hertz rental car. They had a big scandal that came out, and there was a site, Hertz,
oh,
and
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
you remember? And they had it automated that if your car wasn't returned within 24 hours, they sent a police report. And so your car was reported as missing,
Mm.
as stolen. But sometimes it was that the person at the office hadn't filed it. They just they hadn't filed the paperwork that said it was returned. Sometimes it was that somebody had called, hey, I'm going to keep the car for another day. They didn't note it, right? So,
Yeah.
but it was something like, it happened to something like 500, at least 300 or 500 people. I can't remember. And one woman was in jail for 2 months
Oh my
with
gosh.
small kids.
Wow. For small business owners that aren't familiar with PR, what are some tips that you can give them that they can start with now before they hire a firm? And then kind of what is that process working with a firm? How would that look?
So before you work with a firm, some things you can do to kind of get yourself in that mindset, get yourself prepared, ready for PR. If you can apply for awards, right? This is something, cheap, free or inexpensive thing to do. If you have a book, anything like that. If there's any, kind of, if you can have customer success stories, if you have a health and wellness product, can you do a survey? Can you do, have some custom data, right, about the people that use it or about the benefit that it has for people? So these are things you could do that are low cost, that give you some ammo. You want to have good photos. Ideally, you want to have good photos on white backgrounds. If you have a product, you want to, product, or yourself, if you are the expert, you want yourself on, nice attire, white background. It's not that you can't also take some great, portrait shots on, dark black or gray or something, something more moody, but you at least need some that are, clean, bright product shots that could be, or person shots that can be placed in different sections of the media.
Yeah.
You want to start thinking in advance, or you want to work with a PR firm that's asking you questions, about kind of what is your differentiator. So what is unique about your product or service or your level of expertise, right? That is different from what else is out there. It could be it's organic. It could be it's made in America. It could be that you are, you're offering health advice and you're a doctor. So those things make those are huge things. Can start with those kind of elements. You can start getting yourself in the frame. And then I love to invite people when I'm working with them, or, we're starting a process, is to ask for their wish list.
Mm.
So start noticing and looking and finding out what media is already out there. Where would you love to see your client, your business or yourself? Because I've had clients that, they an interior designer who knew about, a magazine in England that I didn't know of, for example. And she just really it was totally her aesthetic. She knew, she thought it would be a good fit. And it's like, I could go, I went and I pitched, and she was right. Right. So
Mm.
sometimes as the client, you have good instinct. Sometimes, I remember I had one client, for example, that it was a food product. I do a huge mixture. I do, tech, apps,
Yeah.
fashion, healthcare. But this was a cooking tool, and they had she'd spoken at the UN. She'd been featured and she won all these awards because it was saving lives in Africa and helping, families, because it was a non-electric slow cooker, basically. So people didn't have to spend all this time tending the fire. It's called Wonder Bag. Really cool. So I was like, I want to get an article in the New York Times. I want an article in the New York Times. Like I was, zero focused. I was focused on that. But I also, in doing all the work to get, that pitch just right, I was also in pitching Wall Street Journal. I was pitching Washington Post. You tweak it a little. And I pitched Time Magazine. I pitched USA Today. Well, I think for that client at the time, I didn't get her New York Times, but I did get her USA Today, and I got her in Time Magazine's 50 Genius Companies.
Wow.
So it was her bag next to, this non-electric slow cooker next to SpaceX on the page.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is, where it's like you want to be focused, right? As an entrepreneur and focus me on the types of stories, but it might lead, it might lead to something, even better, that's adjacent to it, right? Or some people
Yeah.
are like, I want this podcast, and maybe they get on, 12 others, and, some are just as big, right?
Yeah. Well, I encourage
Mhm.
small business owners that are listening, don't think that this isn't for you. A lot of times, this is exactly how small business gets to be a big business. So
Yes.
it's
So
one of
yeah,
those.
if you're plateauing, like you said, right? If you are reaching a place where you're plateauing, you feel like there's a competitor out there that's new, the product's not as good, and they're coming for you. Well, how can you differ? PR is one way that you can differentiate yourself,
Yeah.
right? Even if you've got, let's say, isn't a product that you most half sell on Amazon, if yours is the one as seen in magazine or whatnot that can go on your Amazon page, right?
Yeah.
So these are all, these are the elements that make a difference and can kind of ward off a competitor.
Okay. So, what is one red flag that people should watch out for as a small business owner in the PR world?
Yes. So you really want to watch out if you get pitched by a company or you see ads maybe on social media. I see it a lot on Facebook or Instagram, for example, where it's like, guaranteed PR,
Mm.
work with us. We will get you in, these publications, a good publicist will get you that. But if somebody is saying guaranteed PR, they're doing one of a few things. Either it's just advertorial, right? Which is they have to note if you're paying for that specific opportunity, then they need to note that that is what they're doing,
Mm.
right? Legally, you don't want the
They're
FTC to
supposed
come
to.
after you. Yeah. Or FTC. So that's one thing. You want to watch out for, that also, it could be advertorial or it could be that they are doing something kind of sneaky, underhanded. And, I've had clients be approached by, it was one production company that they produced some television show for Lifetime, I think it was, that was on at probably 2 a.m.
Mm.
And they're saying, oh, we'd love to feature you in Lifestyle Today. And my client's like, oh, what is this? Should we do it? And I'm like, oh, and I took the call, talked to them. They don't want to talk to the publicist, by the way. They want to talk directly to the client. They want to sell you really hard, and they want to sell you like a $20,000 segment
Mm.
for one segment that's on it, that amount of time. And I think if you're going to spend 20 grand on work with me, we can work with you, for 4 to 6 months for that rate and get you several articles. But I'll never guarantee a specific outlet or something like that because I don't control the media. I don't control the flow of news. Life happens, right?
Yeah.
But I know how to get people press, and I have my results speak for themselves. And, I would say, as much as, I can have somebody sign the 6-month contract, if I'm not getting them results, we're probably not going to keep working together after, month 2 or 3. So
Yeah.
I don't mind working hard for a living and being creative, and, we're in partnership. So,
Good
don't,
deal. Well, so it's fair to say probably that read the fine print and don't sign anything until you know what you're signing.
Yeah, just make sure they're a real legit firm. Ask, is this PR or is this advertorial?
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with doing advertorial or doing an influencer campaign,
But just make
right?
sure you know that a $20,000 bill is possibly coming or not. Yeah.
Yes, 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 exactly.
All right. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you. That's great information.
Yeah.
How would someone work with you?
Yes. So they can contact me. And they can go on my website, Marcy Clark PR, and you can see I've worked because I have a 20-year career in this. I've worked in a lot of different industries. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm the right fit, like just give me, reach out, email me. My website and my email's on there, Marcy at Marcy Clark PR, and I can set up a call with you. And if I'm not the right person, I can refer you. I have a big network. But I think as well, a lot of people, maybe they've talked to a PR firm before, and a huge firm, right? A big corporate firm, and they might think, I can't afford PR. That's 12, 15 grand a month, right?
Mhm.
And it can be, right? But I don't think you should be paying more than 10 grand unless you have like 100, 200 employees,
Yeah.
right? I
Right.
think if you are a small business, I think there should be reasonable rates. So I have reasonable rates. I have rates that are also just for sole entrepreneurs, where maybe I'm supporting them. We're doing brand positioning. I'm pitching them as an expert, and I'm focused, on it's, 15 to 20 hours a month of my time. And it's a lot more affordable than people realize.
Yeah. No,
To
I'm
work
glad
with
you,
me.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
some people that do know what PR is, they think of 10, 20, 30,000 a month
Yeah.
recurring retainer type
Right.
thing.
And some people have had their hand bitten before, be from working with those big firms, or, they were, before they were an entrepreneur, they worked at a company that hired one of these big firms, and they saw it just kind of, the firm didn't do that much.
Right.
You really, whether you're working with me or somebody else, I have a lot of colleagues we're extremely creative. We're go-getters. We are going to get you stories. We are, we're going to work as hard as we can to, make sure you get great stories. Some big firms, they're like, so they start out leaning back, sitting back, so what's new? What news do you have?
Mhm. Yeah.
No, it's a myth that PR is just seasonal, or if it's only when you have, a big news announcement. Somebody invented Christmas in July. You
Yeah.
can, and year-round Christmas shops. PR is a year-round endeavor, and it takes time to create, just like a sales funnel, right? It takes
Yeah.
time to really get it going. A lot of times a member of the media will write about my client after I have pitched them for 2, 3, 4, 6 months, right? Even had people that I pitched them, never heard anything. And then a year later, I'm still working with the client. Maybe I've gotten them a bunch of other stuff, but a journalist, responds, after a year, after I just gave up on them.
Yeah.
So you just,
But you got to get the ball rolling somewhere.
yeah, you get the ball rolling. I do a green flag you want to look out for with an agency is that they're really creative. They're asking great questions. They're asking about who your target audience is. What stories do you have? They're asking questions about you. They want to position you as an expert because that's something, even maybe somebody's an expert on, maybe what they're selling, right? Maybe you're selling small business, coaching, but you may also be an expert, I'm guessing, Michael, on work-life balance.
Yeah.
Maybe you could also speak to how to be a good boss, right? So
Right.
you really want to look for people that are asking deeper questions, broader. You're not pitching everything all at once, but I create for my clients or myself with them, like an editorial calendar. So, if there's big events in their industry, whatnot, maybe we're pitching that first, or a big story, a celebrity just used their product. We lead with that, but then there's perennial topics you can pitch year round.
Well, you have been a wealth of information for our listeners
I
today,
hope so.
explaining, sharing tips about the PR industry and how it works and how it can be beneficial. And so I encourage all of our listeners to go check you out. I got two last questions. One is, where can they follow you to learn more about you? I know you have your contact information, but do you post things, YouTube, LinkedIn? I mean, where's a place that you share information?
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, I'm Marcy Clark PR is my just under my name. You can connect with me there.
Okay.
I have an Instagram for my social club, for Women's Mafia, and then it's a little personal too. It's just fun.
Yeah.
But the majority, the best way to contact me is I am person to person. So I want to talk to you on the phone, hop on a Zoom. I want to get to know you. And, usually I find I jump right in with people and we're thinking creatively, we're brainstorming, where could we position them with the media? Where could I imagine my media contacts wanting, who would want to write about them? So we jump right in and I make the process really fun. That's something people should know. So I created, I bring in my background in theater, improv, all that. And we do a lot of, and I'm a yoga teacher. So
Okay.
a meditation teacher. So I do a lot of visualization. We do, a little bit of, a guided meditation if people are open to it. And they actually get from that all these ideas, they get where they should be, what are their dream publications? Sometimes we come up with the wish list in real time and we start, writing the headlines that we want to pitch.
Very cool. Well, again, I encourage our listeners to reach out to you. I always end with one last question because we always kind of like to know where business owners come from. If you were in front of a audience of seasoned business owners, different stages of business, what is one piece of advice you could give them that's applicable to all of them?
You're more of an expert than you know.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, Marcy, thank you again. Wish you continued success and we'll see you around.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. If your business is stuck, you need help creating a business that can run without you, or you need a fast business loan or line of credit, go to our website, businessownershipsimplified.com, and schedule a free consultation to learn why small business success starts with BOSS. If you want to talk anything small business related, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.